Hello, everyone. Well, it's never a dull moment these days. One thing's for sure, every day is going to be exciting. As people know, there's been some blowback for the time that I've been spending in government with the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE. I think the work that we're doing there is actually very important for trying to rein in the insane deficit that is leading our country, the United States, to destruction. And the DOGE team has made a lot of progress in addressing waste and fraud. The natural blowback from that is those who were receiving the wasteful dollars and the fraudulent dollars will try to attack me and DOGE team and anything associated with me. So I'm really left with two choices. Should we just let the waste and fraud continue, and it was continuing at it to grow at a really unsustainable pace that was bankrupting the country, or to fight the waste and fraud and try to get the country back on the right track? And I believe the right thing to do is to just fight the waste and fraud and get the country back on the right track, and working together with President Trump and his administration. Because if the ship of America goes down, we all go down with it, including Tesla and everyone else. I think this is this critical work. Now, the protests that you'll see out there, they're very organized. They're paid for. They're obviously not going to admit that the reason that they're protesting is because they're receiving fraudulent money, or that they're the recipients of wasteful largesse. They're going to come up with some other reason. But that is the real reason for the protests. The actual reason is that those receiving the waste and fraud wish to continue receiving it. That is the real thing that's going on here, obviously. Now, that said, I do think there's the large slug of work necessary to get the DOGE team in place and working in the government to get the financial house in order is mostly done. Starting probably in next month, May, my time allocation to DOGE will drop significantly. I'll have to continue doing it for, I think, probably the remainder of the president's term, just to make sure that the waste and fraud that we stop does not come roaring back, which we'll do if it has the chance. So I think I'll continue to spend a day or two per week on government matters for as long as the president would like me to do so, and as long as it is useful. But starting next month, I'll be allocating far more of my time to Tesla, now that the major work of establishing the Department of Government Efficiency is done. At Tesla, we've gone through many a crisis over the years, and actually been through many near-death experiences. Like we probably were on the ragged edge of death, at least maybe a dozen times. It's been so many times. This is not one of those times. We're not on the ragged edge of death, not even close. There are some challenges, and I expect that this year there'll probably be some unexpected bumps this year. I remain extremely optimistic about the future of the company. The future of the company is fundamentally based on large-scale autonomous cars and large-scale, large volume, vast numbers of autonomous humanoid robots. The value of a company that makes truly useful autonomous humanoid robots and autonomous useful vehicles at scale, at low cost, which is what Tesla's going to do, is staggering. I continue to believe that Tesla, with excellent execution, will be the most valuable company in the world by far. So that's an important if. We must execute well. But if we do execute well, I think Tesla will be the most valuable company in the world by far. It may be as valuable as the next 5 companies combined. But there'll be a few bumps along the road before that happens. I said, I think on the last earnings call, that we'll start to see prosperity of autonomy take effect in a material way around the middle of next year. We still expect to be selling fully autonomous rides in June in Austin, as we've been saying for now several months. So that's continued. But the real question from a financial standpoint is, when does it really become material and affect the bottom line of the company, and start to be a fundamental part when does it move the financial needle in a significant way? That's probably around the middle of next year, second half of next year. And then once it does start to move the financial needle in a significant way, it will really go exponential from there. I'd encourage people to look beyond the bumps and potholes of the road immediately ahead of us. Lift your gaze to the bright, shining citadel on a hill. I don't know, some Reagan-esque imagery. That's where we're headed. And not too distant future, like I said, in the next year or two. With respect to supply chain risk, something that Tesla has been working on for several years is to localize supply chains. This actually makes sense from a cost standpoint, from a logistics risk standpoint, is to have the supply chains be at least located on the continent in which the car is built. And so we are the least affected car company with respect to tariffs, at least in most respects. I mean, it remains to be seen. Now tariffs are still tough on a company when margins are still low. We do have localized supply chains in North America, Europe, and China. That puts us in a stronger position than any of our competitors. Undoubtedly, I'm going to get a lot of questions about tariffs, and I just want to emphasize that the tariff decision is entirely up to the President of the United States. I will weigh in with my advice with the President, which he will listen to my advice, but then it's up to him, of course, to make his decision. I've been on the record many times as saying that I believe lower tariffs are generally a good idea for prosperity. But this decision is fundamentally up to the elected representative of the people, being the President of the United States. I'll continue to advocate for lower tariffs rather than higher tariffs, but that's all I can do. Now, let me walk you through why I'm so excited about the future of Tesla. So first of all, autonomy. The team and I are laser focused on bringing Robotaxi to Austin in June. Unsupervised autonomy will first be solved for the Model Y in Austin. And then actually we should parse out the terms robotic taxi or robotaxi and just generally like what's the Cybercab, because we've got a product called the Cybercab, and then but any Tesla, which could be an S3, X, or Y that is autonomous, is a robotic taxi or robotaxi. It's very confusing. The vast majority of the Tesla fleet that we've made is capable of being a robotaxi or robotic taxi. As we're going from, once we can make the system work where you can have paid rides fully autonomously with no one in the car in one city, that is a very scalable thing for us to go broadly within whatever jurisdiction allows us to operate. Because what we're solving for is a general solution to autonomy, not a city-specific solution for autonomy. Once we make it work in a few cities, we can basically make it work in all cities in that legal jurisdiction. So once we can make it basically work in a few cities in America, we can make it work anywhere in America. Once we can make it work in a few cities in China, it can work anywhere in China. Likewise in Europe, limited only by regulatory approvals. This is the advantage of having a generalized solution using artificial intelligence, an AI chip that Tesla designed specifically for this purpose, as opposed to very expensive sensors and high precision maps of a particular neighborhood where that neighborhood may change or often changes, and then the cost stops working. A general solution instead of a specific solution. With regard to Optimus, making good progress on Optimus. We expect to have thousands of Optimus robots working in Tesla factories by the end of this year, doing useful work. We expect to scale Optimus faster than any product, I think, in history to get to millions of units per year as soon as possible. I think feel confident in getting to 1 million units per year in less than 5 years, maybe 4 years. 2030, I feel confident in predicting 1 million Optimus units per year. It might be 2029. Let's see, with respect to energy, our energy business is doing very well. The Megapack enables utility companies to output far more total energy than would otherwise be the case. When you think of the energy capability of a grid, it's much more than, say, total energy output per year. Power plants could operate at peak power for all 24 hours, as opposed to being at half power or sometimes a quarter power at night. Then you could double the energy output of existing power plants. But in order to do that, you need to buffer the energy so that you can charge up something like a battery pack at night and then discharge into the grid during the day. This is a massive unlock on total energy output of any given grid over the course of a year. And utility companies are beginning to realize this and are buying our Megapacks at scale. So at this point, a gigawatt class battery is quite a common thing. So we're many orders in the hopper for gigawatt and beyond batteries. And we expect the stationary energy storage business to scale ultimately to terawatts. Very, very big numbers. First quarters of a year are usually pretty tricky because it's usually the worst quarter of the year because people don't want to go buy a car in the middle of winter during a blizzard. So we picked Q1 as like a good quarter to do a cutover to the new version of the Model Y. And we changed production of the world's best-selling cars with remembering the Model Y is the best-selling car of any kind on Earth with a 1.1 billion unit per year output of a single model. And we did this changeover at the same time in factories all across the world. Congratulations to the Tesla team on an amazing job in pulling off what is a very difficult transition. In conclusion, while there are many near-term headwinds for us and the broader industry, the future for Tesla is brighter than ever. The value of the company is delivering sustainable abundance with our affordable AI-powered robots. I like this phrase, sustainable abundance for all. If you say, like, what's the ideal future that you can imagine? That's what you'd want. You'd want abundance for all in a way that's sustainable, it's good for the environment. Basically, this is the happy future. If you say, what's the happiest future you can imagine? One which that would be a future where there's sustainable abundance for all. Closest thing to heaven we can get on Earth, basically. So thank you again to the Tesla team for all their efforts at this challenging time. I look forward to continuing to lead the team to great success in the future. The Teslas that will be fully autonomous in June in Austin will be Model Ys. That is that's currently on track to be able to do paid rides fully autonomously in Austin in June, and then to be in many other cities in the U.S. It's very difficult. It's difficult to predict the exact ramp week by week, month by month, except that it will ramp up very quickly. So it's going to be like basically an S curve where it's very difficult to predict the intermediate slope of the S curve, but you kind of know where the S curve is going to end up, which is the vast majority of the Tesla fleet being autonomous. That's why I feel confident in predicting large-scale autonomy around the middle of next year, certainly the second half of next year, meaning I predict that there will be millions of Teslas operating autonomously, fully autonomously in the second half of next year. It does seem increasingly likely that there will be a localized parameter set, especially for places that have, say, very snowy weather, like say if you're in the Northeast or something, like there's, you can think of it, it's kind of like a human. Like, if you could be a very good driver in California, but are you going to be also a good driver in a blizzard in Manhattan? You're not going to be as good. So there is actually some value in, you can still drive, but your probability of an accident is higher. So it's increasingly obvious that there's some value to having a localized set of parameters for different regions and localities. But this is I put that in the nice to have category. It's not the required category. Again, really the car is just very much like a human. It's digital neural nets and cameras, and humans operate with biological neural nets, and so the same strengths and weaknesses will be present. A digital neural net and cameras versus a biological neural net and eyes. I mean, very basic terms. If we're seeing an accident every 10,000 miles, well, then you have to drive 10,000 miles on average before you get an accident or an intervention. It's like, okay. Now imagine. I mean, we must be really. People must be very worked out by the sheer number of Teslas doing circuits in Austin right now. We're like, well, it's going to look pretty bizarre.
Yeah.
Some people are chasing us away.
There's just always a convoy of Teslas going all over to Austin in circles. But yeah, I just can't emphasize this enough. In order to figure out these long tail things, if it's 1 in 10,000, let's say it's 1 in 20,000 miles, or 1 in 30. Then now the average person drives 10,000 miles in a year. So now try to compress that test cycle into a matter of a few months. It means you need a lot of cars doing a lot of driving in order to compress that, or to do in a matter of a month what would normally take someone a year. Frankly, I think the Chinese consumer might be the most demanding consumer, and I actually, our customers in China are awesome. They have a lot of fun with the cars. I saw one guy take a Tesla on autonomously on a narrow dirt road,
Yes.
across like a mountain, and I'm like, still a very brave person. And the Tesla's driving along on a road with no barriers, where if he makes a mistake, he's going to plunge to his doom. But it worked. At Tesla, we're absolutely hardcore about safety. We go to great lengths to make the safest car in the world and have the lowest accidents per mile and fewest lives lost. So we want to be very careful. We want autonomy to be definitively safer than manual driving. It's not enough that it just be as safe. It needs to be meaningfully safer than if it's for cars manually driven. And we want to confirm that there's not something. We just want to be cautious with the rollout. We don't want to jump in at the deep end with an army. But that said, I think we should be able to have it work in several cities later this year for personal use. The acid test being you should be able to can you go to sleep in your car and wake up at your destination? And I'm confident that will be available in many cities in the US by the end of this year. The issue with Waymo's cars is they cost way more money. But that is the issue. The cars are very expensive, made in low volume. Teslas are I don't know, probably cost a quarter or 20% of what a Waymo costs, and made in very high volume. Ironically, we're the ones that made the bet that a pure AI solution with cameras and audio, the car actually will listen for sirens and that kind of thing, is the right move. And Waymo decided that an expensive sensor suite was the way to go, even though Google's very good at AI. So ironic. And it is worth noting that Tesla's built an incredible AI software team and AI hardware chip design team from scratch, from nothing. We didn't acquire anyone. We just built it. I mean, I don't see anyone being able to compete with Tesla. I'm sure that'll change eventually. At least as far as I'm aware, Tesla will have, I don't know, 99% market share or something ridiculous. That 90-something percent. Some of them might change, but if we have millions of cars deployed next year, and unless others have millions of cars deployed. We'll have, unless we're blocked by regulatory situations, it won't be long. I mean, in a few years, we'll have 10 million autonomous cars on the roads and counting. With the software update, it will become autonomous. To be clear, the Model Ys that we're talking about in being autonomous in Austin in June are the Model Ys we make currently. There's no change to it. Useful work fully autonomously at the factories, as Ashok was mentioning. The cars drive themselves from end of line to where they're supposed to be picked up by a truck to be taken to the customer. And I'm confident also that later this year, the first Model Y will drive itself all the way to the customer, like from a factory in Boston and one here in Fremont, California. I'm confident that from both factories, we'll be able to drive directly to a customer from the factory. Literally goes from the end of line and drives themselves to your house. In these videos, people take videos online, and anyone who wants to go see it can just drive past our Fremont factory and see the autonomous cars driving themselves. Yeah, and they drive themselves and they put themselves in the exact right spot to be picked up.
Yeah, the logistics yard is right there in the open.
Yeah.
We don't move it again to another lane.
But they go to a specific parking spot. So that's just a routine, like everyday thing now. And although the line won't be upset at this rate initially, this is a revolutionary production system. I'm not sure what the right word is. Unboxing sounds like something like when you get your phone.
You open it up.
You have like a pleasant experience when you take your phone out of the box. But which of course is nice, but this is much more revolutionary than that. This is a profound reimagining of how to make cars in the first place. No car is made like this anywhere in the world. The factory is the product as much as the car is the product. It's really just the first principles approach to manufacturing that will ultimately allow us, I think, I'm confident ultimately it'll allow us to achieve a cycle time, meaning a unit every 5 seconds or less off a single line. And this is something I've been thinking about for a long time, and I've sort of been thinking about this for a long time, and it's kind of, it's not a crazy thing. Like a car every 5 seconds may sound like it's coming out like bullets, but actually it's coming out at walking speed.
It's like a meter a second.
A meter a second. This is like we're still far away from caring about the aerodynamic drag of the manufacturing line. You're still at 3 miles an hour type of thing.
It doesn't
Like
You know, every 5 seconds sounds crazy, but it's 3 miles an hour. Yeah, you can run away from it basically, but that's still by far the fastest line on Earth. You know, and it's like half order meg. Like, I don't know, what's like the best single line on Earth? It's like about
Shanghai phase 2.
And that's us.
33 seconds.
Yes.
And we're the fastest, right?
I would think so.
We think we're the fastest at 33 seconds in our Shanghai factory, but this would be 6 times faster or 7 times faster. Yeah, it'll be slower than that at first, but the point is that like when you fully optimize the design and operation of the next generation factory that we're building right now, a 5 second cycle time or less is the design is capable of it. You know, so if you like when you go through like a radical new architecture, you go from like being like an A. I mean, I'd say like probably Shanghai in particular is an A+ on a moderately, you know, an advanced but still traditional production system. Sort of, they're really doing about as good as possible to do within a conventional scenario. So trying to get much below, you know, below like 30 seconds is extremely difficult. But if not, and you start getting into sort of impossible where you have to be faster than a human could possibly move. The autonomous line, it really just needs to be robots moving really fast, and that's where you get to sub 5 seconds. But we'll start off with getting a C, instead of an A, getting a C in a new architecture. But then the potential is there over time to move that up to an A+ within an A+ architecture. In fact, there's no more vertically integrated car company than Tesla. I mean, we're the most vertically integrated car company since Henry Ford back in the day when they were doing mining iron and stuff and growing rubber trees. Like, we're not growing rubber trees and mining iron yet, but we have built a lithium refinery in South Texas. I think the biggest lithium refinery outside of China, I think. But its output potential would be the biggest lithium refinery outside.
Yeah, and we've got space to expand it if we need to build more.
Right. So, and then we've got the cathode refinery in Austin, next to the Gigafactory. We've got to figure out what to do about the anode. It's an ongoing subject of discussion. The best of all possible worlds would be figuring out how to have no anode. Best part being no part. That's the dream of the lithium batteries, to be anode, not have an anode. But either way, we've got to have the anode, the cathode, and the lithium, and the electrolytes, the separator to make a cell. You know, there's no other car company that is building lithium refineries and cathode refineries. We're ridiculously vertically integrated, and thus our best position to protect against supply chain disruptions. So make our own cells, by the way. So cell production, you make the anode, the cathode, the lithium, the electrolyte separator, the can, and then you got to put all that together in the cell factory. There are entire companies that all they do is produce cells, but they don't do the other stuff. They don't refine lithium or the cathode or. So our cell production is going quite well, and I think we're currently sort of the lowest cost per kilowatt hour.
Yeah. For all the cells we purchase in North America.
Yeah, so it's
Lowest cost to us.
yeah, so we have the lowest cost per kilowatt hour, all things considered. So the Tesla cell is the most competitive cell for a kilowatt hour put into a car. If it's a Tesla cell, it's lower cost than if it's a supplier cell. Tesla is not immune to the macro demand for cars.
Yes.
You know, so when there is economic uncertainty, people generally want to pause on doing a major capital purchase like a car. You know, as far as absent macro issues, we don't see any reduction in demand. I just want to emphasize, Optimus is still very much a development program. It's not a large volume production. It's fine. You know, this year we do expect to make thousands of Optimus robots, but most of that production is going to be at the end of the year. Almost everything in Optimus is new. There's not like an existing supply chain for the motors, gearboxes, electronics, actuators, really anything in the almost anything in the Optimus, apart from the AI for Tesla, the Tesla AI computer, which is the same as the one in the car. When you have a new complex manufactured product, it'll move as fast as the slowest and least lucky component in the entire thing. And as a first order approximation, there's like 10,000 unique things. So that's why there's anyone who tells you they can predict the production ramp of a truly new product doesn't know what they're talking about. It is literally impossible. You go through this like series of constraints where it's like this part's the limiting factor now, that part's the limiting factor now, this part's the limiting factor, and multiply that by 1,000 basically. And then the rate of the production ramp is decided by how quickly you can solve each of those problems. Optimus was affected by the magnet issue from China. Because the Optimus actuators in the arm do use permanent magnets. Now, Tesla as a whole does not need to use permanent magnets, but when something is volume constrained, like an arm of the robot, then you want to try to make the motors as small as possible. And then, so we did design in permanent magnets for those motors, and those were affected by the supply chain. You know, by basically China requiring an export license to send out any rare earth magnets. We're working through that with China. Hopefully, we'll get a license to use the rare earth magnets. China wants some assurances that these are not used for military purposes, which obviously they're not. They're just going into a humanoid robot. It's not a weapon system. But that is an example of a challenge there. But I'm confident we'll overcome these issues. By the end of this year, have thousands of Optimus robots. The reality is that in the future, most people are not going to buy cars. So it's kind of what, you know, one could sort of say, look, I think want to continue with your phone metaphor. I mean, you can remember the days of the flip phones when there was, 100 different flip phone designs. The mistake that manufacturers made was to try to making up many different variants of which was a mistake. They should have made the iPhone because obviously everyone's going to want a smartphone. But in the beginning of the iPhone came out, I was like, wow, I can't believe these guys are not reacting as though this is dead. But they didn't. They kept making variants of flip phone. Nokia, I think at one point was the most valuable company in the world or close to it, but they kept making flip phones. Trying to find another market niche. Maybe somebody wants a phone of a different style, maybe this different color or whatever it is. Nope, they just want a super intelligent phone that can do everything. Just one. I said this many years ago. In the future, in the not too distant future, buying a gasoline car that is not autonomous will be like riding a horse while using a flip phone. Some people still do it, but it's rare. We're more localized than any other manufacturer, and we have a lot of way that to increase the localization to reduce supply chain risk associated with geopolitical uncertainty. We're still debating the exact number to start off on day one, but it's like, I don't know, maybe 10 or 20 vehicles on day one. Watch it carefully, then scale it up rapidly after that. So, we want to make sure that we're paying very close attention the first time this happens. But yeah, you'll be able to, end of June or July, just go to Austin and order a Tesla autonomous drive. We do need to give people more time to like, if they want to look at, like a key breakpoint is, can you read your text messages or not?
Yes.
Can you write a text message or not? Because obviously people are doing this, by the way, with unautonomous cars all the time. And if you just go for a drive down the highway and you'll see people texting while driving, doing 80 miles an hour.
And putting the makeup on at the same time.
Yeah, putting on makeup, doing their hair with the mirror down, and texting and driving at 80 miles an hour. This is a common occurrence. People eating lunch, you name it. Shaving. Right now, the car is very insistent that you pay attention to the road, which reduces the value somewhat because it's very rigorous about you paying attention to the road. And we'll gradually lighten up on that with every few weeks or every month. We'll relax that a little bit, make it so you can be more and more able to do things you want to do and not have the car demand your rigid attention. So that value, it'll really be profound when you can basically do whatever you want, including sleep, and then that $99 is going to seem like the best $99 you've ever spent in your life. At the risk of stating the obvious, I'm one of many advisors to the president. I'm not the president, and but I've opinion clear to the president, and that and other people made their opinion clear to the president. He listens, he talks to many people, and he makes his decision. I'm hopeful that the president will observe whether my predictions are more accurate than the predictions of others, and perhaps weigh my advice differently in the future. We shall see. I'm an advocate of predictable tariff structures, and generally I'm an advocate for free trade and lower tariffs. Now one does need to take a look at where if some country is doing something predatory with tariffs, or is providing extreme support for, if a government is providing extreme financial support for a particular industry, then you have to do something to counteract that. So, but I think that's on a case-by-case basis strategically. The president is the elected representative of the people, and it's fully within his rights to do what he would like to do. A friend of mine, Naval, made this, posted on X, I reposted it. I think a prophetic statement, which is any country that cannot manufacture its own drones is doomed to be the vassal state of any country that can. And America cannot currently manufacture its own drones. Let that sink in. China, I believe, manufactures about 70% of all drones. And if you look at the total supply chain, China is almost 100% of drones have a supply chain dependency on China. So China is in a very strong position. Here in America, and we need to shift more of our people and resources to manufacturing, because this is, I have a lot of respect for China, because I think China is amazing, actually. But the United States does not have such a severe dependency on China for drones and be unable to make them unless China gives us the parts, which is currently the situation. With respect to humanoid robots, I don't think there's any company in any country that can match Tesla. Tesla and SpaceX are number one. Now, I'm a little concerned that on the leaderboard, ranks 2 through 10 will be Chinese companies, but I'm confident that rank 1 will be Tesla.
Well, I think that's unfortunately all the time we have for today. We appreciate all your questions and look forward to talking to you next quarter. Thank you very much and goodbye.